right, welcome back everyone to another episode of Ham Radio Stranger Things podcast. As always, I'm Ashley, she's Jasmin, and today we are coming back with a long awaited part 7 of our script breakdown series where we analyze Chapter 7, Season 4, Chapter 7, The Massacre at Hawkins Lab. We are going to, we analyze that script line by line and kind of compare it to how it played out on screen in the show. For those of you who this is your first time listening to our script series, go back, listen to parts 1 through 6. You'll enjoy it. It's become a very quote-unquote fan favorite amongst our listeners. And it's been a few months since we've last recorded one because we've been busy with other stuff outside the podcast. But we are back today with part 7. And this is actually going to be a little bit shorter chunk in the actual script than we did with parts 1 through 6, and that is because we don't want to get too much too soon because the monologue, we're so close to Henry Crill's epic monologue, and that's going to be like 4 parts, Jasmin, would you say, in and of itself? So we don't want to get too fast because we definitely want to get into that. So what we're going to do in this episode is we're going to kind of talk about some bonus content from behind the scenes of filming for Stranger Things 5. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to talk about Maya Hawke's new movie, Inside Out 2. And then we're going to talk about some other little miscellaneous Stranger Things nuggets, if you will. And then we're going to get into the script breakdown. And then we got some other fun stuff that Jasmine and I have just been had on our minds lately that we wanted to discuss. And after that, I don't know, we'll go home, I guess. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jasmine. It's going to get us started with some of the behind-the-scenes content.
Thanks, Ashley. So we had 2 behind-the-scenes content drops since we last recorded. So the first one was on June 11th. So videos were shared on the broadcast channel featuring set decorator Jess Royal, who was answering questions from fans. They'd previously asked if anybody had any questions, and so she was answering those. So some tidbits I thought were interesting is that when talking about what a regular day looks like, they showed pictures on the screen of the Byers house from season 1, which I feel like could be an Easter egg for the flashbacks we're going to get this season, because we know from previous stuff that they've shared that we're going back to Will's abduction, we're going back to Castle Byers. They've been filming with Noah Schnapp and a younger actor with the de-aging technology. So we know we are going back to that. So, I mean, I imagine the Byers house would be part of it, and as we know, the house they filmed in is still there. I think, if I remember correctly, it was actually bought by somebody who was, going to turn it into... was gonna replica the decor, if I remember correctly, I think. I know a lot of homes in that area, when people have bought them, they've kind of done that because, I mean, why wouldn't you, So I wouldn't be surprised if we're going back there. And then we found out, they were talking about different stuff they've done for the characters. We found out that Nancy is a fan of Prince, that she has a Prince poster on her wall, and that the still life painting in the dining room at the Krill house depicts the Last Supper meal that Hopper and the other prisoners have before facing the Demogorgon in Russia. So we're talking about how there's a lot of little Easter eggs like that throughout the show that are very quick and you miss it, but they put a lot of thought so that each part of the story connects, even if it's just in the background. She said they create full backstories for each character on the show, including whether they have pets, if they've been to Europe, and what kind of car they drive. So even if you never see that stuff, it never comes up in the script or never comes up in, dialogue, they've mapped all of it out in case it's ever needed. And something I found interesting is if you open desk drawers, kitchen drawers, or lockers on set, all of them are filled with items. So the actors can interact with the set however they feel like, and they know there's stuff there for them to pick up, which I thought was really cool. There's this concept in set design called the clutter budget, which basically means you need to budget for clutter so homes look lived in, and how a lot of modern productions don't budget for this, and how you can really tell because it looks like a museum or an art gallery. And you're like, yeah, nobody actually lives there. But if you look at Stranger Things, you can tell like the homes actually look lived in, and they do that on purpose. So like if the actor wants to open a drawer, they can. Like they can interact with these places like they're real, which I think really helps because you definitely see scenes where things are improvised or, they're just kind of responding to their environment. I thought that was really cool. She said the biggest set they've ever had to build was the Starcourt Mall set, and that every single store in there, including Wicks and Sticks, was shoppable down to the smallest packaging. So each store was outfitted with the correct signage, shelving, and packaging that the shop would have had in the 80s, which means you could have like walked into any of them and like bought an incense stick if you wanted to, which is just a crazy level of detail because like the kids only go into like 2 or 3 stores. The rest of them we just kind of see in the background. We see some of the characters hiding in them during the Battle of Starcourt, but the rest of it, like it's literally just in the background. And I know from, people have said who live nearby that like, yeah, it's basically like a shutdown mall in the area. They basically just completely outfitted. So I thought that was like a really cool level of detail. So basically you could have gone into any of the shops, in case it was needed just to kind of build out so like it felt like a mall. And they said the white whale that they would love to have for the set, but they can't find is a Xerox machine from the 70s or 80s to put in the front office of the school. Which I thought was interesting because when I was growing up, like those machines were everywhere. We had one, my parents owned a business, so we had one, and the fact that they can't find one, they said, we're looking for a working one, a broken one, anything we could use. They cannot find them,
Wow.
which I thought was crazy. Yeah, they can't find them.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing just when like other printers took over and faxes weren't as common anymore, people just got rid of them, or if they've just been junked, or like I think people maybe don't realize they're valuable. Like sitting in somebody's basement somewhere is probably a Xerox machine, and they have no idea that this is a set piece people are looking for because they can't be the only production. These are like a very hard to find item. I mean, they cannot be the only production set, prior to like 90s or earlier that's looking for one of these. They said they really want one. So, if you have a Xerox machine out there, that could actually be worth something. Don't throw it away.
Yes. You might get money and fame.
You might get money and fame, exactly.
Yeah.
Somewhere out there has has sitting on a gold mine. I've also seen like cast interviews where they talk about the Palace arcade set and how every game in there was playable and it felt like a real 80s arcade. So I think this level of detail is standard for the show. Like I think this is something that they do like with all of their sets, which is really, really cool. The only other show I've ever heard of with that much attention to detail is Mad Men. I once read an article where they talked about how for a scene at a hotel, like, the ice cubes were shaped a certain way based on how they made ice machines back then. So they hunted down like an ice machine that was still working from the 60s and had them recreate the ice. So the ice in the glasses was accurately shaped.
Wow.
Which is just, yeah, like that is an insane level of detail. And this person was pointing it out because it's like, yeah, sometimes you see shows like the video game controllers are wrong. And then you have other shows who are like, we got to make sure the ice is correct. Like, nobody would notice that. It's ice. It's melting, Yeah. But I just think it's so cool that they put, like, that level of detail into their sets.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like, I don't have that kind of patience. I mean, I guess, if I got paid, well compensated to do that. But I mean, I think that's great when productions are willing to go that extra mile, that extra step to get accuracy, especially shows like Mad Men and Stranger Things that are set in a different time period. I think that really, for the audience, helps immerse you further into not just the story, but the time period as well, like you're really there. So I think that's cool. Great attention to detail, but cool. I hope they can find their Xerox machine before the end of filming. But if I knew someone who owned one, I would definitely find a number or a way to get in touch with them. Be like, I got one. can I get, a whole day on set? Like, that's all I want. You don't even have to pay me. Just let me come, sit on set, watch you film for a day. I'd be willing to sign an NDA. So, we didn't really get that much behind the scenes content in June. It's been pretty bleak, but on Wednesday, June the 26th, we did get some pictures from the Stranger Things broadcast channel on Instagram of the show's new mascot, a tiny black kitten they adopted. If you haven't heard the story yet, it's pretty cool. It's very sweet too, especially if you're like me and you like cats. But according to the post on the broadcast channel, someone in the Stranger Things 5 crew adopted a little kitty who was found inside one of the Duffer Brothers' cars, I guess up in the engine console. So members of the crew had to apparently take the car apart just to rescue the kitten. The crew member has now adopted the cat, and the crew, the good crew of Stranger Things, they're taking care of her, taking care of this cat down there on set. I saw something the other day on Twitter where someone posted, this cat has seen, more of Stranger Things 5 than we have, and it's only been there for, a couple of days. And, another posted on Twitter, just imagine the things that this kitten has seen. And so, I think the big question is, I wonder who the crew will take her home after the filming's done. You think Jasmin, one of the Duffer Brothers, will do it? They seem to like cats.
Yeah, they might. I mean, yeah, they definitely could. I mean, I think it kind of depends what setup they have at home or how much time they have, because pets are a lot of work. And, if you're off on a production set all the time, it's probably not the best for an animal. But I guess unless if the cat was able to travel with them, then yeah, probably. I mean,
Well, then too, I say that they like cats, but we're talking about the guys who wrote the Muse storyline of season 2, and apparently in the first Shadow play, a cat dies in that as well. So maybe they don't like cats, or at least one of them doesn't. You'd have to hate cats to do what they did to poor Muse in season 2, or maybe that was another writer's idea. I don't know. That's still, Jasmin, for me, very hard to watch. I can't. Every time I rewatch season 2, I skip over that. I can't see it. It's
I skip it too.
Other than Bob's death, it's one of the saddest deaths. I can't even understand how Dustin can even go back and sleep in his room after that happened there. I can't wrap my mind around that one,
Yeah, it's pretty gory. It's kind of traumatic, that one. I mean, Dustin's made of stronger stuff. I mean, I guess the flip side is he'd have to tell his mom what happened, so
yeah,
I guess
and to this day, Claudia does not know what happened.
She doesn't need to know. She does not need to know. Okay, that woman has been through enough.
That's true.
She does not need to know.
I'll always think of her going, Musey, here, girl. It's just so sad. I mean, it's funny, but it's sad. It's really sad.
It is. And, we don't know what the situation is with Dustin's dad that's never been explained. I kind of hope we get an answer to that in season 5. Did they split up? Is he deceased? Did he leave the family? Because it's never really been addressed, and I don't know if they just meant to get around to that and they ran out of time in an earlier season, or if it's meant to be ambiguous, because they take the time to show us, Lucas's family. That's originally why Erica was brought in, right? She was just supposed to be part of showing what his family looked like. We obviously start off with the Byers and the Wheelers. So they could have very well filled in that background, but they chose not to. So I don't know. We could have just get a few lines of dialogue to establish what happened. I kind of lean towards maybe the guy was either never in the picture or he passed away, just because Dustin doesn't really seem to have a lot of trauma around it. He doesn't seem to have trauma about it the way that Will does. Or even Mike, who, obviously not close to his father. He doesn't, I don't know, he seems more similar to Lucas who comes from this loving family, in terms of outlook on life, family, home, personality towards it. I mean, he doesn't seem to have that same kind of that darkness hanging over him the way that like Max or Will or even Mike does about it. Like,
Yeah.
so that's kind of where I lean on that. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the biggest evidence is, I mean, you look at how, well he's handled a long distance relationship with Susie. I mean, we've never seen him and Susie in the same room together, but yet you can tell that they really have a strong relationship and strong affection for one another. And then you go on the flip side of that with Mike and 11, well, mostly on Mike, and Nancy and Jonathan in season 4, who have been in the same room together, but both those couples struggle, or have struggled with the long distance relationship thing. And so, yeah, I mean, I think, I don't really think in terms of Dustin's, you know, psychological makeup, I guess you'd say, has really struggled from a quote unquote broken home. I mean, he seems to have grown up in a loving home, whether, his parents got divorced when he was really young and it's just been him and Claudia, but you can definitely tell that, he's in a loving home, stable home. So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, that's the same vibe I get too. I think it's that, that's, the loving family, at the beginning of, what is it? I think season 3, where he's coming home from camp and he's all disappointed that he hasn't heard from his friends, and his mom is like, "Well, don't worry, they're just busy. I'm sure they're gonna get a hold of you." Like, that's that guy's biggest concern. That gives the vibe of having a loving home. Whereas, like, that's not the biggest concern. The characters like Will or Max or even Mike. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they have much bigger concerns when you're dealing with a home environment like that, whereas I don't think Dustin and Claudia have that. I mean, she's a single mom, and people kind of, make fun of her, it's implied, because she's a bit spacey and she's obsessed with cats, but they're clearly, like, I've seen, lots of people comment on this, whatever she does must be very well paying, or maybe there's some kind of payout to do with, if his father did pass away, something, because I mean, Dustin has a state-of-the-art computer, an entire headset system. He goes to an expensive science camp. They clearly have a very nice home. We see him, he's got hockey equipment. He was apparently in drama at one point. He's in multiple clubs. They are clearly well off. They seem to be on a similar level that the Wheelers and the Sinclairs are, but she's a single mom, which in that day and age, making that much money as a single parent, and to have that kind of middle-class lifestyle, that respect, people, are kind of making fun of her because of her kind of, personality-wise, but they're not mocking Dustin because he's poor. He's not poor.
Yeah.
He's clearly from a middle-class family. So I would like to know what Claudia does for a living, or where that money is coming from, because, Wheeler's is obviously Ted. It appears that both Lucas's parents work. Yeah, I mean, Joyce works, but she obviously, and both Joyce and Jonathan work, at least up until season 3, and they're clearly struggling. And it's clear Lonnie's not, paying into child support or anything. So I would love to know what Claudia does, where she's able to afford that lifestyle for her and her son, or where that money is coming from, where the buyers have multiple people working and they are still struggling. I don't know if it's education related. Yeah, I would love to know that by the end of the show. I would love to know even just a few lines of dialogue. Yeah, I would love to know.
Me too. So, I mean, this has been like a couple months ago, and I can't take, 100% credit for this discovery, because I actually heard it on a good friend of our show, Our Court Lee Hall podcast, brought this up when they were doing their episode breakdown of season 4, chapter 4, Dear Billy. And it's when Max is in Vecna's mindscape, and one of them pointed out, and we have a picture of this. We'll get it up on the social media so you can see it for yourself. But this is a shot, it's like a screenshot from the actual scene, as seen on screen. And the camera's kind of like pulled back. We're kind of looking from a distance at Vecna as he's approaching Max. He's got her pinned up on his vine wall, I guess you'd say, a spear. And in kind of like in the right-hand corner on the ground, right in front of where like the broken staircase of like the Creel house is, there is what appears to be a human skull. And that's what Starcourt Study Hall pointed out, and I had never noticed that before. And so it really got me, thinking, like, whose skull does this belong to? And is it just, because it's looking at Max. And so is this a permanent fixture in his mindscape? Is this from one of his victims? Because we know that, he consumes all of them and they're all in his mind. Is this place here to scare Max? Jasmin, what do you think?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know. I mean, it could be there to scare Max, although it's so far away. I wonder, like, it makes it look like it's the skull of a victim. But if that's the case, like, this is his mindscape, right? Like, it's not real, it's in his head, right? So, because I'm like, if the trophies are in the mindscape, unless, of course, this is somehow all connected to the Upside Down. I don't know, because, if it's the skull of a victim, I feel like Vecna wouldn't leave it carelessly like that. But again, Barb's body was on the floor of the library, so there seem to be different tiers of victims going on here, which I find kind of strange. You got Will and Max and, Fred, like, up on the wall, and these vines, and the library. When you've got Barb on the floor, you've got the skull on the floor. And I think you pointed out in one of the early parts of the script, it says that there was something about how I think Patrick's body was supposed to be up there, but we don't actually see Patrick's body.
Yes.
So I don't know if that was like a budgetary thing or if they were just saving it for later. But yeah, I don't know. It could be there just to scare Max, or there could be some deeper meaning to it. My first thought is another victim. Or, yeah, it's just there to scare her, or he likes looking at skulls, maybe. I don't know. It's his mindscape. Maybe he just enjoys skulls.
I guess so. Like, and this is something, too, that I hope we get some answers to in season 5, like, why his mindscape looks like this. I mean, we got the Creel broken up, the Creel house in there, that clock's flying around, like, it's bloody and stuff. Like, I wonder why his looks like this and Eleven's is just void of nothing. I'm hoping that we're going to get some answers to it, because I feel like, it's something that this is part of the lore and stuff, and connected with the Upside Down, because he's got vines in it too as well. I feel like we could get some answers to it, but like, if we don't, that's going to really stink.
Yeah, it would be nice to know. I don't know if we'll get an addressment of this skull directly, but we could know more about the kind of the mindscape and what kind of the order of the victims are, or if it's more just what he's showing to people, or was Barb discarded on the floor because he was frustrated? Like, I don't know. It'd be great to know more of his kind of motivations. And obviously there was a plan to show us this stuff, so clearly that's been bumped to season 5. Yeah, we kind of and learn more about that again. Like, why is Eleven's void, and why is his got all this stuff in it? Like, is it the way different powers develop for different people, or is it just it's never occurred to 11 to like make a party room in there? Like, it's never occurred to her. It's just like, this is the void. I use it for things, and I go home. Like, and I feel like Ella's approach to her powers is very utilitarian. Apart from when Max brings out that side of her and is like, "Let's play with this." But I feel like fun doesn't really like it doesn't really occur to her to play with things like that,
Mm-hmm.
Unless somebody else suggests it. Whereas with Vecna, he's clearly into that. And I don't know if that's because his powers developed naturally, and so we had more time to kind of be in the world and play with things. Whereas Elle was confined to the lab, so she's very like rigid unless somebody introduces something to her. So I don't know if that's just kind of a symptom of how that occurred, or if it's like deeper than that.
Yeah. It'd be interesting for sure. Let's see if they even address how his powers came to be in the first place. I think they came naturally. I definitely hope for more Henry backstory in season 5 for sure. And this is, I think, a big part of it as we get these clues, figuring this stuff out.
Yeah, for sure.
So we also, Jasmin and I, we also kind of talked about this in like some voice messages back and forth about how Jasmin, 2 years after season 4 has long been released, just figured out why the Nina Project is named the Nina Project, even though Dr. Brenner tells us why it's called Nina. Jasmin, you want to tell the people about why, like how you came to that conclusion, and what, if they don't already know, what the Nina Project is named after?
Well, you can get more into the name stuff because you're better explaining it than I am. But so I was, as some listeners may know, we recently republished our back catalog because we discovered there was a technical issue which caused some episodes, older ones, to only be displayed on Spotify, not other platforms. So we fixed it. And when I was going through our back catalog to republish everything, I came across an old episode that Ashley had done before I was on the podcast with her, talking about the Nina Project and the I think it was the Hawkins Lab teaser, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's correct.
And talking about the name, the Nina Project, and its connection to the French and Italian operas called Nina. And I'd never heard this. I'd never come across it. And I hadn't heard or seen many people talking about it. I mean, I'm sure people were at the start of it, but I didn't see it. And so my mind was blown because, afterwards everybody's like, is Nina a person? Is it an acronym? What does it stand for? We hear the story about the train station, but we're like, okay, well, is she Nina? How are those two things related? Why would you call it the Nina Project? So that episode is now published as part of our back catalog, so you can go back and listen to it. I believe the title is something about, I think it's Hawkins National Lab teaser trailer, I think. And the full version with the original music will be available on our Patreon in the future. So there's a bunch of episodes that had some music and like sound effects that are copyrighted. So those full original versions will be available on our Patreon. We are working hard to get it to you guys. And so Ashley, do you want to explain to the people in more detail what those operas are and how it's connected?
Yes. It's the opera is called Nina. It's available in there's like a French version and an Italian version, but I believe in Stranger Things they use the French version. I think, isn't that what we said, Jasmin? They use the French version.
I think they actually use both. I think they use one version in the teaser and another one in the show.
Yes. Correct. They did. I think they used the Italian version in the teaser and they used the French version in Brenner's explanation of it in the show. And it's basically about this woman named Nina whose lover is killed in a duel, and I guess the grieving and all that causes her to have amnesia. And kind of like 11 with her powers, even though like Henry wasn't her lover, but she did quote unquote kill him in a duel, and she fell unconscious after overexerting herself, and didn't remember the massacre. And then Brenner worked with her the first time to get her powers back, and then I guess with Henry, when operating the Mind Flayer meat monster, bit her leg, took her powers, and she lost them again, and now she's going back into her memories to reclaim them. Like, the metaphor of this opera, to me, as it relates to Eleven's powers and all that, gets a little wonky at the end. I always am perplexed why Brenner told her, return to your train station. But whatever, they needed to get the girls' powers back in a unique way, so it is what it is. Which I actually like the Nina Project arc. I just think it arc works well when you have, a 6-episode miniseries versus really only like 3.5 episodes with, select few scenes. I just didn't think they had really enough time to fully, devote to that. But yeah, that's about the Nina operas, and that's why it's used. It was used in season 4.
The more you know.
Yes.
For anyone out there like me who was like, what is Nina? I also kind of feel like maybe they need to drop some dialogue next season to kind of clear that up for people, because it's like, I felt like that's such an obscure reference, and because they don't directly connect it in the show to either of the operas, it's a little bit confusing because there's 2 different operas. Like, I have a friend who's a real opera lover who watches with me, who watches the show with me, and like, she didn't catch that. When we all got to the end of the season, we're like, what the frick? Why is it called Nina? So I feel like because they were speeding along so quickly through some of the plots in season 4, and then stalling out on others, stuff like that kind of got missed. So I feel like, I don't know, I feel like maybe they could drop some dialogue that feels like something along the lines of, when the group's back together and they're like walking themselves through what's happened, someone's going to be like, why the Nina Project? And then Robin could pop in and be like, where there's this opera. Like, that seems like the kind of obscure fact Robin would know. I could see Hopper being like, why the frick did they call it Nina? Who's Nina? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, something along those lines. I feel like they could, just the natural interaction with the characters, I feel like could lead to a lot of explanatory dialogue in this season if they write it the correct way, like go about it the right way. So that's something I'm really hoping for in this season, because it would be nice to kind of tie it all together,
Yeah. I agree.
So next up, we have Maya Hawke's new movie. So she was Inside Out 2, which is a sequel to Pixar's Inside Out that came out a few years ago. Ashley and I both really like this movie, so if you haven't seen it yet and you liked the first one, I'd recommend it. We would recommend it. And if you haven't seen the first one, I think it's on Disney Plus, so you could watch it and then go see the second one. I thought she did a really good job. At first, I kind of thought it might be stunt casting, and she did sound a little bit like Robin to me in the beginning. But then I felt like it went away and she really became the character. So she plays a new emotion of anxiety. And I thought she did a really good job. I think because they probably picked her because she's a really fast talker. And that was a key part of trying to show what anxiety feels like. So I feel like she did a good job with it. And I really liked it. I felt like it did a really good job of showing what anxiety actually feels like, what a panic attack actually feels like what those emotions feel like, how, displaying, what it looks like to go through puberty, to go through that, crazy time in your life as a teenager. It was funny, it was heartfelt, but I felt like, it did a good job of, I don't know, dealing with, a sensitive topic with, tact, but also making it really funny. My friend and I have been joking about the sarcasm in the movie. Ashley, do you know what I'm talking about? We've been joking about that for, days. I'm not going to ruin it for people, but it's hilarious. And I felt like it was a movie that, really respected its characters. And, I read somewhere that they had, actual, psychologists who were, consulted. And they had, a focus group of teenage girls who would, critique their work every few weeks. Which is funny, but also, it really shows. Plus, a big part of the movie is about hockey. And now that we have the Professional Women's Hockey League, there is actually an opportunity for women to go pro that wasn't there before. So, they couldn't have known that when they were making the movie, but it's really cool. It, showcases, women's hockey. And now there's actually a pathway to being pro, which I think is really cool. And there's a lot of detail in this movie. There's the wear on the wooden paneling at like the hockey rink, or like there's like that little bit of dirt that winds up on the floor. Like you can tell they went to like a rink and like tried to replicate it as much as possible. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so did I. I think Jasmine, I probably liked it for all the same reasons that you did, except for like the hockey part. Not because I don't like hockey. I did only because I didn't know. Then there was a women's hockey league. I actually like watching hockey on TV. I watch it quite a bit. I watched the Stanley Cup Finals the other night. Yeah, I mean it's always cool, especially when you live down in the southeast where it's like hot all the time. To see something with ice in it, especially in June when it's very hot outside and humid. It always makes you feel a little bit cooler. And also, because like we don't play hockey down here because it's too hot. I mean, we have the Nashville Predators, are our NHL team down here, but for the most part, it's football, baseball, basketball, soccer down here, golf, and it's all the ones that you can play in a warmer climate. So I like the hockey part. I mean, not for the same reason, but I thought Maya Hawke did an excellent job. I can definitely see why they cast her in this role, even though I did, think of Robin initially when I heard her voice because I recognized it. But yeah, I thought she did an outstanding job, and I think the boring emotion was another one that I really liked.
Ennui.
Yeah. Wee. Because I thought it was funny.
Yeah, and I liked how they handled it, because I remember when my friends and I saw the trailer, we're like, I don't know, because like that's a pretty complex emotion for a children's movie. Because it's one of those movies that's like, it's got stuff for kids, it's meant for teenagers, it's meant for adults, it's kind of got, and that's kind of the Pixar brand, it's something for everybody, right? But we're like, oh, like how's Ennui gonna go? But I like the way they did it. It was like, yeah, I thought they did a good job of expressing like boredom, apathy, like ennui. I thought like, and Joy can't pronounce his name.
Yeah.
I love that.
So it's a good movie. You should definitely go see it. Like I know it's a Disney Pixar film, and so people are automatically going to think it's just for kids. But no, I mean like adults can definitely get something out of this movie as well, because I'd say that anxiety is a very big emotion that only gets worse as you get older, especially when you're an adult and you have a job, and if you live on your own. I mean, I'm anxious most of the time. So I definitely think it's something for all. I don't know if I would take like a 6-year-old to go see it unless they just want to go see an animated movie, but I don't think they would really understand, quite the same, way, especially with the anxiety thing and all that, like the story behind it. But I would highly encourage people to go watch it. It's definitely worth your time and your money.
Yeah, I also thought it was really well done. And I feel like there's been a bit of a lull because of the strikes. It's kind of like catching up. It's kind of like during COVID when there was a bunch of stuff for a while and then there was just a lull where there wasn't anything. I feel like we're kind of in that period of time where if something got made before the strikes, or like they were really close to finishing it and then they just kind of finished it up and were able to release it, then it's coming out now. But if they didn't get that far or didn't go into production until afterwards, there's just this big lull. When we're not going to get like a lot of new content until like next year and like the year after. We're also kind of seeing like the death of network TV, as things are kind of going downhill on that front. So there's not a lot of content right now, period, and there's not a lot of high quality content. So it's nice when you go and see something and you're like, wow, like I really enjoyed that. Like I'm sometimes hesitant about sequels because they're usually not as good as the original. But this one, I actually feel like is just as good as the original. It was more focused on like Riley as a character and her emotions, whereas I feel like the first one was kind of her whole family. But I also feel like that's kind of what being a teenager is, right? It's a very like self-focused time in your life, and I feel like they really encapsulated that feeling of like who you're friends with and like your social standing being like, being everything,
Yeah.
I felt like they really captured that, like, that emotion, that feeling really well. So, yeah, good movie. Go see it, guys. Go see it. And so the something else I wanted to share with our listeners today is, so we talked about this way back in one of our previous script episodes, where there was a note about from one of the early parts of the script, where it made reference to Bob's heroic journey in season 2, and we both were kind of like, is it the same room? Is it, what's the callback supposed to be there? So, when I had some free time, I went back and I rewatched that scene, and I watched the scene where Eleven is in the boiler room in season 4, and Bob is in season 2, and I discovered that it is actually the same room. This appears to be the actual basement in the building where they film all of the lab scenes. Now, I think some of the other rooms, like the room with the computers and the breakers and stuff, I think that was something they created. So I think there are some extra set pieces here, but the staircase, the actual room, I compared it, and it is the same room. And this appears to be like an actual boiler room, like this is the actual basement of the building. Because a lot of the detail going up to the ceiling, I'm like, yeah, you wouldn't, you normally would not have the camera pan up that far, normally there would be nothing there if it was a set piece, so you can see them pan all the way up. So I think this is the actual basement they film in. And so I thought I would share my discoveries with you all, because we'd kind of wondered what was the callback supposed to be here. And I think, I think there were a lot of callbacks in season 4 that were supposed to be a bit more obvious, but they just didn't come through because of how much time had passed. Like, had season 4 been released when it was supposed to, I think that might have been more obvious. The script direction we have here from season 4 is interior of Hawkins' lab, boiler room, day, memory, 81. She, 11, enters the boiler room. We recognize this from Bob's heroic journey in season 2. It's scary down here, and without a flashlight, it's very difficult to see. She hears a gurgling noise, turns, and that's the point at which Henry scares her. So the key parts we're supposed to take away from here is that it's the same boiler room as season 2. She's following the same path that Bob did. And the part without a flashlight, Bob has a flashlight. She does not, so it's hard for her to see. And hearing the gurgling noises and having there be like a spritz of like hot steam come out and scare her is the same thing that Bob does. So she's basically following the same path. And so we were supposed to have, I think there was supposed to be more of a callback there that just didn't come through. So this is the part where in season 2, Bob goes downstairs to flip the breakers and reboot the computer system because he knows BASIC and nobody else does. And we get those iconic lines about like, why don't I just teach you French while I'm at it? And so we see the same thing, kind of that same, Eleven takes the same path. And when, she turns around because she gets spooked, she bumps into Henry. And I think the reason that this kind of callback was supposed to be more obvious but didn't come through is that in season 2, the room is very dark because the lights are off and Bob only has his flashlight, but in season 4, the lights are on. And there's a change from like script to screen here. Because I think when they went to film this, they realized without the lights being on, like there's no reason 11 would have a flashlight. It doesn't, like the boiler room doesn't quite look the same when the lights are off, and they couldn't quite recreate it the way they wanted to. The whole kind of spookiness of that scene with Bob is he's only got his flashlight. It scares him from behind. They were trying to replicate it, and I think when they went to film this, they went, wait a minute, the lights would have to be on. There's no reason for the power to be cut here. If she had a flashlight, somebody would notice. So it looks different because it's in the dark and it's only like backlit. Like there's fluorescent lighting that's there normally. So I think that's why the kind of the callback didn't come back as strongly. And I think it's really interesting that they put so much time and effort into recreating this scene. Clearly there's something they're supposed to take away here. I'm not quite sure what that is. There's clearly a reason they put so much work into having her follow the same path, do the same thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to see kind of, where they're going with that. They clearly put a lot of time and effort into this. So beyond just, Henry being creepy and scaring her on purpose, I don't know if they're trying to make a connection between the Demogorgons and Henry. Clearly there's some sort of, they're trying to make this comparison really strongly. So I'm curious to see kind of, where that's going in season 5, because they clearly put like a lot of work into this, and there was very clear set direction, like script direction, very clear for this. I mean, this direction is for Millie Bobby Brown, and this is for the set decorators and like the lighting crew and the direction. Like it's there for a reason. So I'm just really curious to find out, like, why are they working so hard to make this callback?
Yeah, I think this is a show that loves its parallels as well. And because it was such a pivotal moment in that episode in season 2, I kind of figured they wanted to show what happened there like 5 years prior. And I must say, like, in season 4, it's probably one of the creepiest moments, not only in that episode, but I think in season 4. Because it plays out to me like he's been laying in wait there for her. And I mean, I don't really know why he would, do that. Why can't he just meet her at the stairs when she came in? Because at that point, the guards aren't chasing her. So, I mean, what was the point of him waiting there? I mean, why would you want to scare her already when, if he did premeditate the massacre, if he already knew what his plan was, why would you want to scare her initially? I don't know. It was creepy. I don't really get why he did that in the way he did. I guess it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things anymore, but yeah, it was definitely, and they played such, some of the most beautiful score in that scene as well, and probably one of the creepiest, cinematic moments and, directional moments of, the episode and the season, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Like oh my gosh, I can't think of the word. The score is beautiful. Like, it's creepy but beautiful. I know. I think he just did that to throw her off her game. Like, I think he just did that to kind of like startle her and throw her off balance. That's how it comes across to me. Because you're right. Like, he's laying in wait. He waits till she's freaked out and turns around. Like, he clearly planned that on purpose. He could have just met her at the end of the stairwell. Yeah. So he clearly did that to scare her and just kind of throw her off balance. Because then he's like, shh. After he's intentionally scared her.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I feel like as we go along, we're probably going to find more, callbacks or parallels that they've done. Because, like you said, this is a show that really loves its parallels.
For sure. All right, Jasmin, you ready to get into the script?
I am ready.
It's the moment you've all been waiting for. The script. So we only have about like 10 or 11 pages to really cover. But first we're gonna kind of pick up where we left off. In the previous part, and that was we were in the demo pit with Hopper and the other Russian prisoners, including Dmitri. We're building up to the gladiator type scene with the Demogorgon. I don't really have much to say here about this part of the script other than I thought it was really interesting when I read this part of the script. Like, I learned how they write in an English-speaking person, or really not an English-speaking person, but whenever you're speaking a foreign language. So what they'll do is, at least according to this script, I looked this up, and it is standard. But so they'll type the words out in English, the dialogue, but they'll put in arrow parentheses. They'll put that dialogue in those arrow parentheses. So I guess whoever's doing the subtitles as well will know that this is all, in this case, supposed to be in Russian, but that it's supposed to be in a foreign language, which I thought was really cool. I actually thought they just typed it all out in the foreign language itself, which makes really no sense unless you have an actor who can actually read that and interpret it. So I thought that was pretty cool to read in the actual script, but there's a lot of action, more so than really dialogue in this part of it. So, a lot of action just for the directional pieces of Demogorgon and all that. That's the biggest thing. I gleaned from this portion of the part we're going to discuss. Jasmin, do you have anything?
I have many things. I have
Yes.
so many things. Gosh. What is it? Yeah, I'm going to start. We'll start at the top. So many things I noticed. Right off the bat, the biggest thing I noticed is that the order of the scene between the demo pit and the control room and the guards, like the entire sequence of events, is out of order. They changed the order of these scenes. So I don't know if they filmed them one way and then recut them differently just to kind of like amp up the pace of it, to kind of keep the pace going. That would be my guess. That happened several times between, the scenes with Murray and Joyce and the guards, and then Dmitri and Hopper, and then the guards talking amongst themselves. Like, that order switches around quite a bit. Something big off the bat that I noticed, like Murray threatening the guard comes before Hopper trying to get the lighter to work. The script identifies one of the other prisoners by the name Oleg, and I know there was a bit of a focus on him in the Russia plot, but I feel like the fact that they're pointing him out a few times in this sequence, I think he was maybe supposed to have a larger role or a bit more of a focus, and they decided either not to, or maybe there was more footage that they just didn't include. Because what stands out most in that plot is the friendship and like the escape plan between Dmitri and Hopper, not really the other prisoners. And yeah, they go back to Oleg a few times. So that really stood out to me as a big change from like script to screen. Because later they're saying that like it's even getting him kind of a thing, like we're supposed to really care about this character, and I'm like, we don't really see them very much actually on screen.
Yeah, yeah. And, one part I noticed as well that was different from page to screen was the first like prisoner that we see like on screen be killed by the Demogorgon. He's like basically eaten by it. In the script, it just says like the Demogorgon slashed it with its claw and like cut his neck. That is definitely not what happens to that poor man. So I guess they must have changed that when they were filming or in post, I guess, to make it look scarier or whatever. That's definitely a hard part to watch. Like, I don't like to watch that kind of stuff anyway. Even though it's kind of quick, it's still pretty hard to watch.
Yeah, the scenes where the Demogorgon, attacks the prisoners are pretty hard to watch, even going around a second time. I noticed the Demogorgon is a lot more violent and aggressive on screen than in the script. And I feel like that just had to be them kind of playing around with what they could do. Because I remember them saying in an interview that, like, we'd never seen a Demogorgon jump before. Not like that. And that they really wanted to, like, play with that. And show more of what, like... I think this is supposed to be, like, an older, more adult Demogorgon, Because it seems to be a bit more advanced. Although I don't know if that's maybe... We know the Russians were experimenting on it. So maybe it's, like, it's enhanced, Like, it's a more aggressive Demogorgon than the ones we've seen before, because the other Demogorgons appear to have, like, they're part of the natural habitat of the Upside Down, whereas this one was apparently, like, created in a lab, or they, like, got one and then grew it somehow, Like,
Yeah.
they seem to be growing them. So I kind of wonder if it's how, with the lab kids, Henry had his powers naturally, but Elle, had them, and they were, like, enhanced, right? Like, on your own, they're one thing, and then you enhance them. So that really stood out to me, too. Because, the prisoners are pretty violently murdered in this scene. There's also the part where the prisoner hits the ceiling and part of it falls down. I remember one of the visual effects, like, behind the scenes videos that they put out after season 4 came out, was that, like, that wasn't supposed to happen. It, like, happened the day of, like, the set piece fell down, but they kept it in because it looked cool. And then There was a part that's in the script that's not in the final version where we see in the script it says Murray's eyes snap from the battle to the lower balcony where he sees the tall guard arguing with Ivan. See appendix number 9. He snaps back to the warden. So it looks like there was some extra dialogue there. That scene was either cut or rewritten the day of because Murray doesn't do that. He's just talking to the guard while threatening him. And I love this is in both the script and the final version. They just leave Yuri behind. Like it takes him a minute to realize that they've just left him behind, and he like hops after them. Oh, that made me laugh. And the set direction this scene is great. Like this whole sequence from like the time Joyce and Murray get there like on the balcony to the end of like the sequence where they get them out. The set direction, or I guess not set direction. I guess it would be dialogue direction. I guess, but Murray's at a dead end with this guy. Fuck it, and then he just decides to just like whack him in the head with the gun. There's a lot of swearing in this part of the script, which I found really funny. Like they drop a lot of F-bombs. There's a lot of swearing to describe the situation with the guards, the Demogorgon, how like the situation is going south very quickly, which I think is supposed to indicate to the actors that, like, you know, this is a tense thing, like, this is a tense situation that warrants swearing, you know?
Yeah.
Like, they're trying to give them, these directions give them the vibe of what they're going for, right? And so in this scene, we're cutting back and forth between the control room and the demo pit, rather. I love this description. Off the technician, trapped between a rock and a hard place. And we cut back to the demo pit. And then, again, the order of the scenes with Hopper and Dmitri, the demo pit, and the guards on the balcony is reversed. I liked this direction. Dmitri tosses Hop his axe. Our men now go about executing what is clearly a well-thought-out plan. To be honest, I feel like in the final version, it doesn't look as well-thought-out. It looks more like, you know, they clearly had some kind of plan, but they're also kind of, like, ad-libbing on the fly here. I think because kind of the order of what the Demogorgon does and how it kills people changed on screen. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe that's why it comes across as a bit more like scrambling. Like they had a plan, but then it kind of went haywire, so they improvised. And the sentence, let the monster feed, is added by the guard. Like that's not in the script, that was added to the dialogue in the final version. Just one of my favorite lines from the scene is from Murray when they're in the control room, and he goes, I gotta give it to you, commies. You're committed. And then he just whacks the guy over the head. Oh, I also noticed that, like, in the script, it talks about how Hopper grabs the torch out of the grate, and that happens multiple times in the script, but in the final version, he's just holding it, like his torch/spear, he's just holding it the whole time, which was probably done just to make it go faster. I feel like they probably went to film that and were like, he keeps having to pick it up, like, we're ruining the pace of the scene. And again, the order of the control room, the demo pit is switched again. So I feel like this had to do with pacing. And this, you know, we talk a lot about pacing in this season because there's a lot of times the pacing feels off, but this is a sequence where it doesn't, where it is very fast paced. It is go, 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 where I think the pacing is well done. So clearly they made some changes the day of when they filmed this to be like, yeah, that pacing is off. They clearly had a very set vision for this scene. I think you can tell that. And they kind of adapted it the day of. And I think maybe that's kind of what kind of differentiates some of the scenes in season 4 from one another, where I don't know about you, Ashley, but for me, I can tell the scenes where they had a very clear vision and they plotted it out in their heads, and so when it wasn't working, they adapted it. Or they switched, or they did what they had to do to get that pacing, to get it right. And then to me, you can tell the scenes where they didn't have as clear of a vision. They thought it would just look good on screen. They thought the dialogue was good enough. And then it just didn't really land. Like, they didn't have as clear of a vision, or maybe another writer wrote that, and then they kind of got there, and they were like, well, crap, like, we'd love to rewrite this, but, frick, we don't have time, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of the scenes give me that vibe. Did they give you that vibe too?
Yeah, I'd say there's some that, you know, you can tell. Like I think one, it's actually in the episode following this one at the end, when 11 is finally rescued by the pizza crew, and she's like, we have to get back to Hawkins right now. They're in danger. And Will goes, who's in danger? And I'm like, I will probably never know because they're not going to release that script. But I sincerely hope that the Duffer Brothers did not write that in the script and that it was improv on somebody's part the day they filmed that, because I hate that. Like, it's so like, who do you think? Like, who could possibly be in danger in Hawkins that we know? Like, that one, I feel like by that point in the filming process, or even maybe even the editing process, they were just like, look, we got to hurry up and get this out. Like, we don't care. It makes the final cut. We know we got a good scene following this one that, it's going to seal the deal. Like, we got to go. So yeah, I mean, I definitely see where you're coming from on that.
Yeah, there are a lot of scenes I feel like in this season I kind of feel that way. Where, yeah, I feel like some of those shots were not the best, or like that was kind of the best take they had, or they had a vision for something that didn't look as good on screen, but they didn't have time to fix it, So, yeah, I feel like that's kind of what Season 4 fell victim to, is they ran out of time, and you can tell the stuff where they had a clear vision and they had time to fix it, and the stuff where they just didn't. A lot of scenes kind of give me that vibe. So getting back to Russia, the next thing I noticed is that when we go back to the control room, the dialogue and the scene is a bit different. So in the script, there's short dialogue and Joyce just starts pressing buttons. In the show, Murray says he needs his glasses. He goes and gets them. There's more dialogue between him and Joyce back and forth. He's like, you can't just push buttons. And Joyce is like, I don't care. And she's just like pushing all the buttons. And it works. And he's like, that did it. That's it. And so there's more dialogue and tension about like closing the door, like both in the demo pit, like rap, but also like between Murray and Joyce. And then the order of the miracle scene and the close the door scene is changed around a bit for dramatic effect. Like, those scenes are more together, shorter dialogue or less dialogue in the script, but in the actual show, they're changed around where we're pausing more, we're adding more dialogue, and I think that's to kind of give it more dramatic effect and to set up the reunion more. So that's something that I really noticed about the order of this scene. Ashley, was there anything else about this part of the script that stood out to you?
Not particularly, other than I just wanted to say that, and this is not just particular to this scene, but like throughout this script, as I noticed thus far, like, I love the way they write the directions and stuff, especially in this scene and like in the one following it, because you gotta understand, like, this pit and the stuff in the Upside Down, like, that's on a sound stage. And so, the Demogorgon, that's not real. Not, actually looking at a Demogorgon or a Demobat, or, the environment of the Upside Down. So I do think it's very important that you write the direction for your actors so that they really like, oh my gosh, this is a bloodthirsty Demogorgon who's ripping people's heads off, literally, So I do like the way they write the directional pieces for this stuff, which, I mean, I feel like it's, pretty standard, but we don't really get to, look into all this. The only reason that this is available to the public is because it was nominated for an Emmy, and so therefore they put it out there for the public. But that's the only thing I really have to say, finishing up this portion of this part of the script.
Yeah, for sure. And now we're getting to my favorite part, because we're getting to Joyce and Hopper's reunion, which is my favorite part of this whole scene. So some pretty big changes here. Dimitri's line is changed from, and we have your miracle, right when they get into they get behind the doors, into kind of the, I don't know what you call this little room thing. What are they? they're calling it the Demogorgon pen, I guess.
Yeah, pit.
In the script.
They said a pit.
No, I'm talking about the little room that they get into once the doors close.
Oh.
In the script, they call it the Demogorgon pen. It just has a containment cell for the Demogorgon, solid metal on all sides. So, this is the pen. So the outside area is the pit, and then I guess this little room that Dmitri and Hopper get stuck in is called the pen. I guess it's where it goes before it comes out. So they changed Dimitri's line here, and they changed the order, which I think made for much, much better scene. So in the script, they get in there, and Dimitri's like, and we have your miracle, and the door's shut. Which, in the final version, there's a bit more back and forth with the Demogorgon and the buttons and the whole thing. And then, it kind of pauses for a little bit. And then, after they've been in there for a little bit, Dmitri says, for a second, I thought we had your miracle. And I think they probably changed that so it's more, you feel it emotionally more when Joyce shows up. Because the original version is much more kind of fast-paced, kind of like off-the-cuff, kind of, I don't know, almost like buddy cop comedy kind of style. Whereas the final version had a lot more gravitas, which I liked. Because, this is like a gut-wrenching thing they've just been through. And these are two people like fighting for their lives. I think that makes so much more sense. And I kind of get the vibe that they were trying to feel out who Dimitri's character was going to be in this original version. Like, in some of the previous dialogue we've talked about, he comes across as a bit dumber, Like, not quite as intelligent. And I think in the final version, he comes across as a lot more intelligent, and his words have a lot more gravitas, which I think is cool, because I like the final version better, because I feel like he comes across more as Hopper's equal in the final version, versus not quite being on Hopper's level in the original. Which I think made for a way more interesting dynamic.
Agreed.
And so I thought that was cool. And then the line, out of one prison into another, happens after they realize they're trapped in there, and that just makes so much more sense. Like, in the script, they're like, go, 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 and the characters seem to know everything. Whereas in the final version, there's more pausing. We see the characters digest and process information. We see them kind of like looking around, feeling things. And that seems to kind of, I feel like that's more accurate to how you would actually experience that situation versus just being omnipotent. That the script gives the vibe of these characters are God, and the final version gives, no, they're not. They're people. Which I really, really love. And then we have, like, the best part. And something I find really interesting is, I haven't read this much farther into the script. I mean, I've skimmed it, but I haven't read it this far in detail. In the script, we go from, them realizing they're trapped in there, and, the buzzer sounds, doors open. And I love this description. So, in the script it says when Hopper realizes it's Joyce on the other end and not a Demogorgon, it just says Joyce underlined. Time seems to slow, in all caps, as they meet eyes for the first time since that fateful day last summer. God, it sounds like that in a rom-com. As music and emotions rise, tears filling those eyes, we hard cut to Eddie's trailer. Or no, we hard cut to them riding on their bikes. I'm sorry, I apologize. We hard cut to the kids riding on their bikes. And I just thought it was interesting. I love that description, but I also thought that kind of differs quite a bit from the final version, because, in the version we see, Hopper, and Dmitri are approaching, fists raised. We get that lovely, tender, emotional music that we see so much of this season. Joyce and Hopper lock eyes. You have their reunion, and I remember seeing something, I think an interview after this season 4 came out, where they changed up the way they did the hug, like the embrace. Because I think in the original he was supposed to, like, fully embrace her, but instead they have him just kind of stand there like, he doesn't quite believe that she's real, that she's really there, like, am I dreaming kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
And it, like, takes him a minute before he's like, this is real, and you can tell she kind of, like, hugs him, and it's kind of like, it's okay, I'm here. And it's so sweet, and he, like, smiles, and then, like, Dimitri's behind him, and he's got his head, like, bowed kind of in prayer, and I just, like, I just love that, and it's a really subtle change, but it's such a good one. You know, it feels like they really workshopped this a lot.
Yeah.
And I love that they had the time to do that, because I don't know, I get the vibe that some scenes they really had a chance to workshop and just really play with it, and other stuff they just didn't. And it kind of sucks, because I feel like some storylines suffered, like the California slash Nevada pod, I feel like really suffered. You don't see that gravitas in Will's storyline, in Mike's. Like, you don't see that gravitas there. And as much as I loved Mike and Elle's reunion, like, you have some gravitas in that moment, but you don't really get it the rest of that plot, because I feel like they're trying too hard to have it be like a stoner comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't get the gravitas you get in these scenes, which is just so well done. And I think, to me, the sad part about that is the actors are clearly capable of it. Like, sometimes you have child actors, they're not capable of it, fine. But that is not the case here. Like, we saw in season 1, these actors are fully capable. Like, Will, Mike, Elle can all have scenes of this level of gravitas and do a great job. Like, they have proven on screen that that their actors can do that. So I don't know. I feel like they should have given them more, because they clearly could have done it. They could have done it.
Yeah. I know. We got a whole off on a whole rabbit trail on that, talking about that.
Yeah. Indeed. Actually, I know we were going to talk about the next part, but I feel like maybe we should make that the lead into the monologue. What do you think? Because we're not there very long until...
Yeah, I think so.
Because I'm just rereading the script, and we've got the bikes, the trailer, and then it goes into we're back with the friendly orderly.
Yeah, because we don't go back to Russia any in the rest of the episode, so I think it.
Yeah.
This would be a perfect place here. We could, include this in with a monologue, because we go straight into the monologue, at the end of the scene anyway.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to do that. And, I mean, we can't make any promises, but we promise we will try get you guys the next episode, the next script episode, better than the last one. We know you guys have been asking for it, and we hear you. We do hear you. It's just, probably out of all of our... Ashley just messaged me with the exact same thing I just said. I had not seen your message, but yes. We might think alike. But, where's I going with this? Yeah, we will try to get it to you sooner than last time. We know. It's just this series, out of everything we've done, it probably is the most time-consuming. It takes the most research. You got to compare the scenes, which are very jam-packed, to the script. There's a lot of direction. There's a lot of, the script is very, very meaty. It's not just dialogue. There's so much extra there. So, out of everything we do, it's the most labor-intensive. But
yeah.
we promise we hear you.
Just
and
wait
we will try our best.
Just wait till we get to the end of it and get to the appendices.
Oh,
Those
yeah. Jeez, okay.
Those extra
whole episode.
Bonus episodes.
Oh, yeah, there's a whole, yeah. There's a whole episode in that just by itself, Alrighty. So that is our script breakdown for this episode. Ashley, would you love to tell all the wonderful people about the latest with Oakbridge?
Certainly. As of June the 30th, as we're recording this, episodes 1 and 2 are out. You can go check those out on all your favorite podcast platforms. I mean, it's on Spotify, Apple, Podbean, YouTube. It's on all of them. There's 10 episodes in season 1. They'll be released on Fridays consecutively. Episode 3 will be out on this Friday, June the 5th. Hopefully by the time you're, listening to this episode, it'll be out then. And I just had to say, like, so far, the response, just to the first episode alone, and now with episode 2, has just been phenomenal. We're just shy of already having 1,000 downloads and plays on episode 1, and it hasn't even been out there, like, right now, 2 weeks. I mean, within the first week, we had like 600, I believe, plays and downloads. And so far, across the board, we've gotten, I think, like a total of 13 and 14 between Spotify and Apple, like 5-star ratings across the board. People on Twitter and Reddit and Discord have just been saying a lot of, wonderful things about it. The reviews have just been awesome. People seem to really love the show, the acting, the sound design, and they're really invested in the story, which is always good to hear as the creator, that people are invested in the story. They understand it, but they want to hear more, and they love the characters. And we're already only on 2 episodes. We've got 8 more episodes to go, and every day, like, we haven't really plateaued with plays and downloads at all. I mean, they're still growing. We're actually charting on Apple. Just as of like 2 hours ago, we were.
That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. We were actually in like number 56, like in the U.S. On the Apple charts, and we were like 60 something on the Canadian side. So, and when you're up there we're up there with like some pretty large, I consider to be kind of large in the audio drama community, and with competing, not really competing, well, maybe competing, but we're in the mix with, some pretty well-known studios who produce audio dramas. So, just keep them coming. If you could, listen and rate and share the show with anyone that you can think of, put it on your social media, that would be great. It's just, it's become like my obsession. I've checked the numbers pretty much on a daily basis, but I really love just, reading the feedback. I think that's probably been, for me as the creator, one of the best parts so far. Just knowing that this is something that people are loving and are excited about. So it's been really good. And I try not to let my head get too big. But it's just been incredible. I think our producers, 97 to Now Productions, I think, they knew it would, in some aspects be a quote-unquote hit, but I think, I don't think they were, expecting it to be this, big, so soon. And I personally think we'll get to, or perhaps even surpass the 1,000 download and play mark within the first 30 days of the release of episode 1. Like, I really do believe that, and apparently that's good. It means we're in the top 5 percentile. But anyway, yeah, just go listen to the show. We'd really appreciate it. And I think if you're listening to this show, I think that means you're a Stranger Things fan, and I think you'll like Oak Bridge, which is definitely influenced by Stranger Things, but I put my own spin on it, and I think it has a little bit of something for everyone. So definitely go check it out.
That is so awesome. Actually, I'm so happy for you. Like, she can tell you, I knew it was going to be a hit, and I told her it was going to be a hit. But it's always great when you have that gut feeling about something and it turns out to be true. Ashley can quote me on this. I said from the beginning, I said, you've got a great show. You just got to get, you got to get people's ears. You just got to get people to listen to it and see it. And I'm so happy for you. I know how hard you've worked on this, and it's been a passion project of Ashley's. So please go listen if you haven't. It's really good.
Yes, thank you, Jasmin, for the kind words. And I think with that, we're going to sign off on part 7 of the script breakdown series. We hope you've enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll get it, within the, by the end of the calendar year. Hopefully part 8 will be out. With that, Jasmin, you have
I think we can do better than that. I think we can get it done this year.
Yeah. I think we can too.
We've got what? Let's see how many pages we stopped at. What page did we stop at? 58, and we've got
50 more pages to go.
Yep. Oh, it's a big meaty script. It's a big script. Kudos to the actors to be able to memorize all this stuff.
I know,
because there's so much. It's so big. Obviously everybody has their own techniques, but you see those bloopers where oh god, I can't get this line, because there's just so much dialogue, and obviously some stuff's gonna stick better than others. And so when you hear about ad libs, I think some of it's people ad libbing the day of, or just being I feel like this would work better. But I think a good chunk of that is just crap. I forgot my line. I'm just gonna roll with it.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is just as good, right? I think that's about knowing your character. If you know your character well, and you just know them well, and you know what they would say or do in that situation, that allows the rest of the scene to flow and the other actors to play off you. And sometimes usual take is better, and other times, that whatever you just kind of came up with in the moment is better, and that's the one they use.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Oh, kudos to them for being able to memorize this stuff, though. It is, and they've said they're doing basically, what did Sadie Sink say lately? I think she said in some interview that they're basically doing, or maybe it was Maya Hawke. Somebody said they're doing 8 movies.
Yeah, I think it was Maya.
It's going to be season 5. Yeah. And apparently they're doing, so the scripts are presumably going to be these 100-page things again, which is I guess it's good practice if you want to do movies. A TV show would normally not have this much. Do you know what I mean? It would not be this involved. The scripts wouldn't be this long.
Well,
there wouldn't be this much direction.
I think the script for The Vanishing Will Byers is 75 pages or 90 pages.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so much action in the episode. Reading the if you read that script with the cold open, because there's so much action. That's literally 20 something pages long. And so I think it's probably because there's a lot of action, and stuff. In that episode is only 50 something minutes long. It's not, usually they say the script pages is 1 page equals 1 minute of screen time. But, I think it just depends on the action and stuff and how it's edited. It's a lot, but
yeah, it's a lot. And when it's good, man.
Yeah.
When it's good, it's great. When it fits the mark, it's still good. It's still good. It's just we know it can be better. I think that's the thing, right? We know, we know how good it can be, and so I think that's where the critique comes from, because it's we know you guys can do better than this. Come on, we know you can do better. And I think season 5 will be better. I think season 4 was kind of a special case with COVID, and yeah, I think it's going to be good. I have very high hopes, high expectations for season 5, and I don't think I'll be disappointed. I don't say that very often about media or art, but yeah, I think it's going to be great.
Me too.
Yeah. Alrighty.
All right, so thanks again, guys, for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Ham Radio, a Stranger Things podcast.